Good morning everyone from a pretty bright northwest of England. Hope everyone is okay. Just before we get going, I'd like to say a quick hello and best of wishes and lots of love to those guys in the Florida area who have been affected by this just devastating hurricane. I've been keeping my eye on things on the news, so I hope you guys are okay. I'm sending lots of love and I hope you're doing all right. And today I thought we would have a look at these gorgeous little components. Aren't these beautiful? There we go. So I've made a suite of jewellery here. This one is for me, just because I felt like it. Although when my mum sees this, she's probably going to want a set of her own because she does like to pinch my jewellery, don't you, Mum? I know you're watching. So I'll probably do this in lilacs and pinks, which is her colour choices. So these guys are beautiful for bracelets, as you can see here. How gorgeous is that? Very, very much a statement piece on the wrist. You can use these for pendants. I've just used that as a simple small one because that's what I fancied, but you can use like 3 or 4 or 5 and use them as stations around a necklace. But today we are going to be making the companion to this guy here so that we have a matching pair of earrings. Okay, so I'll go through a list of materials, the things that we need. I shall just pop those out of the way for now. Right, so let's get going. So what you're going to need is 0.8mm wire, that's 20 gauge. You're going to need some 0.5mm wire, which I believe is 22 gauge, but as usual I will just double check and put it down in the description box for you. You're going to need a mandrel, a 10mm 1 centimetre mandrel. Again, I'm using centimetres because obviously I'm European, so you guys that use inches and increments of inches, I'm not sure what that would be, but find yourself a mandrel that's a centimetre, 10mm. You're going to need some flush cutters, as always. You're going to need some chain nose pliers. So I'm using my favourites. I always have a few different pairs on hand because each of them do different things, don't they? So chain nose pliers, just take your faves. You will need a ruler or some form of measuring tape or device. And I think that will be it, apart from an ear wire for your earring and one of these little twisted bone units, which I've made before. I won't show how to do it in this video because it'll make it too long, but I will put a link up here somewhere, hopefully, where I will pop the video where you can learn how to make these. All right, so I'll clear the table away and we will get going. Righty ho, team, let's go. So we'll get going on these. So I'll just measure how wide these guys are for you. So we're looking at around about 1 inch across, and that's what, about 2.5 centimeters. All right, so that's the size of these guys. When you know how to make these, you can alter the size of the loops, however big or small you like them, and that will obviously change the size of the floral component. All right, so I'll get that out of the way. So you're going to need to take your 0.8mm wire, and you're going to need around about 50 centimeters. Now you will, I warn you, if you use 50 centimeters, you're going to have a little bit of spare on either side, and I'll show you what I mean soon. But I use the spare for making ear wires. All right, so the reason I'm saying you need a little bit more is because it's easier to handle and easier to deal with if you've got slightly more than you need. You probably get away with 45, which is what, 18 inches, but I'm going to go for 20 inches, okay? But that's just me. So you guys can choose your own lengths when you get going on how to make these. Righty ho, so just give your wire a little bit of a straighten, like so, and here we have our piece of wire. Right, so the first thing we need to do is to bring in our little mandrel. I've had these guys for quite a long time. And about 10 centimeters, I would say. Let's have a look. Yeah, about 10 centimeters along, which is what, about 4 inches along. Pop your wire atop. So let's shift that out of the way so we can see what we're doing. And then we need to wrap our wire around. That's twice, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7 and 8 and 9. So that we want 2, let's see if I can count this with my Mrs. Magoo eyes, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So we want 10 wraps on the top, and then both of these ends need to be facing in that direction. All right, it's like so. So we have 10 and these guys facing upwards, like so, like a coil. We bring in a small piece of our 0.5, about what, about 3 inches, 4 inches, something like that. And we want to just give it a bit of a kink in the middle. And on this side here, not the side where the these wires are poking down, but up top here, we want to be placing our little piece of wire and just squish, 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 like so, and cross those guys over, like so. Okay, so we're bringing in that as tight as you can. So we want to wrap these guys around and through a couple of times, maybe 3 times, something like that. Where's my plier? Like so, nice and tight, not too tight that you break your wire. And then back round, like so, just to hold these guys into place, and pull tight, and pull this guy tight, like so. Okay, like so. Right, so the next thing we need to do is to just snip this here. Sorry, I went a bit out of focus then because my eyesight is appalling. There you go. I'll try and keep in focus from here on in. Very difficult when you're recording. You should try it sometime. Fun, but sometimes difficult keeping everything in focus. So you have this, all right? So you've got this guy here keeping all of these rings together. So next thing to do is to pull the wire straight on either side. So you've got one coming out of this side, one coming out of that side. So this is what we have. Okay. The next thing we need to do is to pull these rings apart. Now you should have 9 rings. So 1, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. Brilliant, 9. I know what I'm doing. Okay, so very gently pull these guys apart, which I thought looked like a little bit like a pumpkin. I know we're coming into Halloween season, aren't we? Although I'm sure there are lots of us out there, not so much me, but there's lots of people out there that celebrate Halloween as soon as October the 1st hits, which is fine. So how cute does that look? I might see if I can design a pumpkin design around this actually, because that looks like a pumpkin, doesn't it? So we have this now. All right, so we've got one wire coming out of either side of the center. The next thing we need to do is to start flattening these little loops. Now you will find that when you start doing it yourself, there is a natural direction in which these guys go, and you'll know what I mean when you start doing it yourself. So just literally start with each one very gently and with lots of control, start to push each one of these rings forward like so. Just keep going round, going round and going round, and start pushing them so that they're starting to lay flat. Can you see that? So they're laying flat. Don't worry if these guys bunch up a little bit at the moment. You've got time and plenty of space to deal with that later. So trying to keep these guys as equal as possible. Once you get to this point, you can come in with your fingers, the pads of your fingers, and start to push and flatten. You can come in with your nylon jaw pliers if you have nylon jaw pliers, that's also good. But I like to use my fingers. I think our fingers are really good tools. So as you can see in the centre here, that initial 0.5mm wire that we used is holding all of these together. Can you see? Okay, you see that? So just squish and squish and squish, like so. So we have this flattened rosette type of affair, still with the wires coming out. Now these wires are still part of the component for now, all right, because each one of these hoops here will be attached. Okay, so just be careful what you're doing at this particular stage. Right, so what you need to look for now is the center of this guy coming up here, and you want to measure this, the length of this wire. I'm using about 7 centimeters, which is what, how many inches is that? 2 3/4 inches, give or take. It doesn't have to be precise. And just chop that off. Now, the reason I'm measuring it is because each one of these needs to be consistent. If you're going to be making a few of them, if you measure it, then these guys will all pretty much look the same size, okay? So here is our, which one was 7 centimeters? 7 centimeters, super. So if you have a look in the center, you'll see that that wire there is the end of this hoop here. So you don't want to be pulling this too much because it will make this hoop short, small, you know. So if you pull this too much, don't. It's my advice, because it will make one of these loops tighten up. All right, so that's just one little tip for you. So you need to come in then with the tip of your pliers, and we're going to be making a spiral. Okay, so start off making a spiral like so. We've made spirals before, so just keep going with your spiral, using the flat part of the flat widest part of your chain nose, or you can use the flat nose pliers, you know, the wider ones, or indeed if you like to use your nylon jaw pliers for this kind of thing, that's also fine. So we want to get that as tight as possible. So this is the fiddly bit. All right, so if you pull that out a little bit, but remember not to pull too tightly on this piece of wire, because it is attached to one of the loops. This is the fiddly part. Okay, so we've got it to about here. Can you see that? This is the stage where we now pull it into the center. So hold here, bend this round into the center as best you can, like so, and then just use your thumb and your pliers just to position it into the center. So because there's a little bit of a lift, a little bit of a gap here, what I tend to do is bring my pliers in and just make a little bevel shaped, okay, and then just push that in. And then what I tend to do is use my thumb and my forefinger and just cup these petals a little bit. All the time, just sort of making sure that everything is still in position, and space these guys out as evenly as you can. So you're left with something that resembles that. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. All right, so you still have this guy coming out of the back, which again, don't pull too hard on that because that's obviously also attached to one of these loops. All right, so you've left with this dainty little flower. Isn't that pretty already? All right, so there's two ways of doing this. You can either shape the petals before we finish this guy off, or you can shape the petals after we've finished this guy off. I tend to like to do it before because it just gives you something to hold on to. So space these guys out a little bit with your fingers. Make sure everything's nice and neat and tidy. This little spiral you can alter, you know, after when you're putting everything together, you know, when you're doing what you need to do. So you come in with, I'm just going to trim that a little bit because it's catching on the table. There we go. So you come in with your chain nose pliers. Place them inside each one of these loops like so. You can see here. There we go. Let's just see if we can focus. And what you need to do is grasp here and twist to put a little angle in your petal, essentially. You can leave them if you want, but I think that a little bit of structural embellishment looks nice. So in each loop you place your plier like so, and twist in and twist in, twist. Now some of these petals may look a little bit misshapen at this stage, but you can sort of faff around with them later on and fettle them, as we say. So can you see here, that one's a little close. So this is the time when you pull everything, move everything around, bring your spiral into the center, that kind of thing. You know, don't forget these are handmade, so if they don't look exactly the same, that's also fine. All right, so as you can see here, we've now got a little flower with the pointed edges. Like I say, if you wanted to keep these rounds, that's also fine. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is to straighten this little section up here. And what we're wanting to be doing is to chop until this is about, I don't know, let's have a measure. I'm going to say about just under 1 centimetre, like so. And then to finish this off, make a tiny spiral at the back. All right, so we bend this guy around like so, and then just pop that flat at the back and tuck that in so that there's no sharp edges. If you can feel a sharp edge, just give it a bit of a tuck in like so. Can you see that at the back? Now that secures everything into place, and there we have our little flower component. So like I said, if you need to come back in and give it a little bit of a fettle, that's absolutely fine. So there is our little floral component, a flower or a mandala or whatever you want to call it. I like these. I think they're really, really effective and really pretty, and they make for beautiful components for things. Now, obviously, you've secured it as well as you can. This will probably not stand lots of pulling, so make sure that you're not using it for something that you're going to wear every day that you might catch on, you know, on something. It is secure, don't get me wrong, and you know it will wear quite nicely, but obviously don't give it too much pull. So let's pop on our little component here. You're going to need, I've neglected to say you'll need some jump rings. I'm using 4mm made from 1mm copper wire here. Open up your jump ring, close it up. I'm using my fingers as tools again, but obviously do it the right way. Pop that on there, like so. And then just find the natural spot where you think it will hang nicely. Because don't forget, some of these guys are going to be slightly more offset than others by virtue of the fact that it's handmade. And just literally attach your ear wire or whatever it is that you want to make, and there you go, that's that done. How aren't they beautiful? Really, really easy to make. I think these are really pretty, and like I said before, they will make super components for things like your bracelets and for necklaces and things like that. All right, so have fun making these and let me know how you get on in the comments. I always love to hear from you guys. And again, my love and best wishes to all you guys that are affected by the recent hurricanes in the Florida region. Hope you're all okay. And I'll see you in my next video. So I'll see you soon. Bye.